This deep dive is for all of you Cane Corso owners out there. We're going to tackle the sometimes destructive behaviors our furry friends can exhibit.
Yeah.
Ripped shoes, maybe a little landscaping mishap in the backyard. We've got your notes, we've done some research, and we're here to help you crack the code on why your Cane Corso might be acting up.
Right.
And trust me, you are not alone in this.
Yeah.
Tons of Cane Corso parents face similar challenges. But here's a thought. What if we shift our thinking a bit?
Okay.
What if instead of seeing this as destructive behavior, we think of it as your Cane Corso trying to, communicate with you?
Oh, interesting.
Maybe they're trying to tell us something isn't quite right. Like their inner Sherlock Holmes is trying to get our attention.
That's a really, really interesting way to frame it. Cane Corsos are brilliant dogs.
Yeah.
Super intelligent, but they definitely speak a different language. It's like their own, secret code. And sometimes those chewed up shoes or the holes in the flower beds, those are their messages in disguise.
Yeah.
And what's really fascinating is that these sources we have, they really delve deep into the root causes of these behaviors.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. What are some of the top messages, shall we say, that our Cane Corsos might be sending through, these actions?
Well, from what I'm seeing, these sources point to three main culprits. First up is boredom. These dogs, they were bred for some pretty demanding jobs, right?
Yeah.
Like guarding, herding, even hunting. They need mental stimulation just as much as they need physical exercise.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like they've got all this energy and intelligence bottled up, and if we don't give them a proper outlet,
right,
they're going to find one themselves, right?
Yep, exactly. They're going to get creative, and it might not be the kind of creativity we appreciate.
Exactly. Speaking of energy, the sources also talk a lot about the importance of physical exercise.
Oh, absolutely. It's crucial. We're talking like a bare minimum of 60 to 90 minutes of activity every single day.
Wow. Every day.
And I'm not talking just a casual stroll around the block,
Right.
Cane Corsos need stuff that gets their heart pumping, activities that really make them think.
So it's not just about tiring them out.
Nope.
It's about engaging their minds too,
Whoa.
right? Keeping that detective brain sharp.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sniffing out new scents on a walk or navigating an obstacle course, things like that. Those activities, they challenge their brains as much as their bodies.
I love that. It's like a workout for their mind and body. Now, building on that idea, the sources also mention that exercise can actually double as mental enrichment, which is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, while we're out for that power walk, are there ways to make it extra engaging for our Cane Corso?
Absolutely. So instead of always taking the same route, mix it up, expose them to new sights, new smells, new sounds even.
All right, yeah.
Let them sniff around and explore. It's like a puzzle for their noses. You could even incorporate some training exercises along the way, quick sit or stay or down.
Oh, I like that. It's like turning that regular walk into a mental obstacle course. Now, beyond just exercise, what about other ways to keep their brilliant minds occupied?
So the sources really emphasize what they call structured playtime.
Okay.
And I think this is where our detective analogy really comes into play.
Okay, I like it. Tell me more.
It's all about giving your Cane Corso puzzles to solve. So things like interactive toys, puzzle feeders, even something called scent work where they have to track down hidden treats.
Oh, okay. So instead of just giving them their food in a bowl, we make them work for it a little bit.
Exactly. We tap into their natural instincts, to forage and hunt.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what have you found to be the best types of puzzle toys for a Cane Corso?
Right.
Because I imagine they need something pretty darn durable.
Oh, for sure. You are absolutely right. Cane Corsos, they are powerful chewers, so those flimsy toys just aren't going to cut it. You need something that can withstand those jaws. Kong-type toys, those are fantastic, especially if you fill them with frozen treats or peanut butter, Oh, it can keep them entertained for a long time. And then you also have puzzle feeders. Those are great. The ones that dispense kibble as they roll them around.
Okay, yeah.
And for something a little more challenging, there are even puzzle boxes.
Oh.
They require them to manipulate levers or solve puzzles, to get to the treats.
So we're talking like a real mental workout for our furry detectives here.
Right. Exactly.
We've talked about boredom. We've talked about the importance of physical exercise. But there's another piece of the puzzle here, right?
Yeah.
And that's anxiety. The sources mention anxiety as a potential trigger for this destructive behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like in a Cane Corso?
Well, anxiety, it can show up in a lot of different ways. You might see destructive chewing, digging, excessive barking, maybe they're pacing, restless.
Oh.
One common type of anxiety we see with Cane Corsos is something called separation anxiety. That's where they get distressed when left alone.
Oh, yeah. That's like the classic coming home to find your favorite slippers in pieces situation, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if we think our King Corso might be dealing with anxiety,
Hmm.
what are some steps we can take? What can we do?
Well, I think just like a good detective, the first step is observation. We got to gather clues, right?
Right. Become detectives ourselves.
Exactly. Pay close attention to your dog's behavior. When are they most likely to, you know, act up? What's happening right before they start?
That's a really good point. We need to identify those triggers. So for instance, if they only start chewing on stuff when they're left alone,
Right.
that's a pretty strong sign that it could be separation anxiety.
Right. Exactly. And if that is the case, the sources suggest a really cool technique called counter conditioning,
Oh, good.
which is basically, replacing that negative association with being alone with a positive one.
So instead of being scared or stressed when we leave,
Yeah.
we want them to associate it with something good.
Mm.
Okay, I am very interested in this counter conditioning idea.
Yeah.
Can you break that down a little further? How do we make that swap?
So think of it as building up positive associations.
Okay.
Instead of, you're leaving being a scary, sad event, you make it a signal that something great is coming.
I like it.
You start by associating your absence with something your dog loves. So, for example, give them a special chew toy or a puzzle feeder that they only get when you are about to leave.
So it's like they start to think, oh, my human is leaving, but that just means I get this awesome treat puzzle. It kind of takes their mind off the anxiety of you leaving.
Precisely.
I love it.
And that's just one example. There are a ton of different ways to, make counter conditioning work.
That's awesome. Now, that brings us to another important point the sources make. Sometimes we just need to call in the professionals, right?
Oh, absolutely.
There's no shame in asking for help from a certified dog trainer or a behaviorist.
It's like a detective calling in a specialist for a forensic analysis, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes we need that expert guidance. They can help you create, a plan that is tailored to your dog's individual needs.
So it's not about, admitting defeat. It's about recognizing that sometimes you just need extra support to, really crack the case, right?
Yes, exactly. A fresh perspective can be so helpful.
We have covered so much ground already in this first part of our Cane Corso deep dive. We've explored the reasons behind those sometimes frustrating behaviors, from boredom and lack of exercise to anxiety. And we've started uncovering some clues on how to address them. But we're just getting started, folks.
Oh, you're just getting warmed up.
There's so much more to explore. So make sure you tune into part 2, where we're going to delve even deeper into specific strategies and techniques for becoming the ultimate Cane Corso detective.
I can't wait.
All right, welcome back to our Cane Corso deep dive. We've done some digging. We've talked about the why behind those less than ideal behaviors.
Right.
Now it's time to put on our problem-solving hats. Let's talk solutions, just like a detective, putting all the pieces together.
I like that. And these sources, they've given us some really great practical strategies to try.
Okay, good.
Remember, our goal here is to make sure we're meeting our Cane Corso's core needs, right?
Right.
Physical activity, mental stimulation, and that all-important sense of security.
Yes. So let's start with that physical activity piece. We know they need a lot of it.
A lot.
But beyond the daily walks, the runs, are there other activities that would really tap into those, like Cane Corso instinct?
Well, we have to remember they were bred as working dogs, right? So activities that channel that heritage can be super fulfilling. Agility training, for example.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
It's physically demanding, sure, but it also requires a lot of focus and teamwork, and Cane Corsos really thrive on that.
It's like you get to use their brains and their brawn at the same time. I can just picture them confidently navigating those, jumps in the tunnels.
Oh, yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, it's really impressive to watch. What about obedience training?
Okay, yeah.
Do you think that would fall under this category?
I would think so, right?
Mm.
I mean, it's more than just teaching them commands, isn't it?
Exactly. Obedience training, it's about building this strong bond,
Yeah.
based on communication and trust. And for a Cane Corso who really wants to please their owner, mastering those commands, it can be super rewarding for them.
It's like a win-win for everyone. We get a well-behaved dog, and they get a sense of accomplishment and purpose.
Yes, exactly.
I love that. Now, while we're talking about tapping into their instincts, I was looking at the sources here, and they mentioned scent work as a great activity for cane corsos. What does that even involve?
Scent work is all about using their amazing sense of smell, right? So you hide a certain scent, like a toy or a treat, and you teach your cane corso to find it, using their nose.
It's like a treasure hunt.
It is a treasure hunt for dogs.
Oh,
It
wow.
taps into those natural hunting and tracking instincts.
Yeah,
And it's mentally stimulating. It's like giving them a case to solve
I love that.
using their super sniffer.
Okay, that's fantastic. But, even with all this activity, there are going to be days when, like, a long walk just isn't possible.
Right.
Or a full training session.
Oh, yeah.
So what are some strategies for keeping our Cane Corsos entertained and engaged when we're indoors?
This is where those interactive toys and puzzle feeders that we were talking about earlier, they're absolute lifesavers.
Yeah, good point.
It's all about turning mealtime into a mental workout.
I love that.
Mm.
Okay, let's dive into some specifics.
Wow.
What types of interactive toys would you recommend for a Cane Corso?
Right.
Because, I'm picturing they need something pretty durable and pretty engaging.
Oh, definitely. We're talking about dogs who are bred to, take down wild boar.
I know.
Those flimsy little plush toys, those just aren't going to cut it.
No way.
You want something that can stand up to some serious chewing.
Right.
Things like Kongs,
Okay.
heavy-duty rubber balls, rope toys. Those are great options.
And for puzzle feeders, what would you suggest that's specific to a Cane Corso's size and intelligence?
Oh, there are some really cool ones out there.
Cool.
You've got your puzzle boards where they got to move sliders or lift these cones to find the treats.
Oh.
And then you have those treat dispensers, that release kibble as they roll them around.
Mm.
And then for those super smart Cane Corsos,
Yeah.
you can even get puzzle boxes where they had to do a bunch of different things to actually get the reward.
That's amazing. There's so much variety out there.
Yeah.
It's like we've got a whole arsenal of brain-boosting tools
you?
at our disposal. Okay, so we've talked about, keeping their minds active, but let's shift gears a bit and talk about that anxiety piece, especially separation anxiety, because it seems to be pretty common with Cane Corsos. We talked about counter conditioning earlier.
Right.
I'd love to dive into that a little bit more. How can we actually use that technique to help our dogs, feel more comfortable when we're not around?
So the key to counter conditioning is that you're slowly and systematically changing your dog's emotional response to you leaving.
Okay.
It takes time, it takes patience,
Mhm.
but the results, they can be amazing.
So it's not a quick fix. It's
Yeah.
more of a long-term strategy.
Right, right. It's about changing how they feel about being alone.
Okay, I like that. So what would be a good starting point for someone who's just beginning to try this out?
One simple thing, but it's so effective, is to create, a positive association with a phrase or a cue that you always use before leaving.
Okay.
So, for example, you might say, "I'll be back."
Okay, yeah.
And you say it in a really happy, upbeat tone, and then you immediately give your Cane Corso a super high-value treat,
Yeah.
something they love.
So we're basically pairing those words, "I'll be back," with something super positive, like a delicious treat.
Exactly. You're pairing it with something amazing.
So over time, do they start to think oh, okay, that means something good's coming, even if they just hear the phrase?
Exactly. The goal is to change that emotional response,
Yeah.
From dread to anticipation.
I love it.
You want them to hear, "I'll be back," and think, "Oh boy, treats," not, "Oh no, I'm all alone."
That's such a good way to reframe their experience.
Right.
So smart. Now, beyond that,
Mhm.
beyond the phrases and the positive associations, are there other practical things we can do to help them adjust to, being alone?
So the sources talk a lot about gradual desensitization.
Okay.
It's basically slowly getting your Cane Corso used to you not being there. You start with super short periods, and then you gradually increase the time.
Okay, so it's easing them into it.
Yes, exactly. You don't want to just throw them in the deep end.
Right. No, that makes sense. Can you give me a concrete example of what that would look like?
Okay, so imagine you're leaving your Cane Corso alone for the very first time.
Okay.
You don't want to just leave for an hour right off the bat.
Right.
You want to start by just stepping outside for a few seconds and then coming right back in.
Okay.
And when you come back in, keep it really low-key, you
Yeah.
know?
Right.
You don't need a big excited greeting. Just act like it was no big deal.
So you're basically desensitizing them to you leaving and coming back.
Exactly.
You're making it a normal part of their routine.
It's just part of life. And once they're comfortable with those really short absences,
Yeah.
you can slowly start extending the time.
Okay.
Maybe you step out for 30 seconds, then a minute, then 2 minutes,
Yeah. You build up.
And you always want to watch for any signs of anxiety.
You're basically building their confidence like step by step.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I like that. Now, speaking of building confidence, the sources also talked about, creating a safe and enriching environment for our Cane Corsos, especially when they're home alone.
Right.
What are some, like, key things to keep in mind when we're setting up their space?
Well, first things first, you want to make sure that space is safe and secure.
Right.
Cane Corsos, they can be very strong and determined. So you got to make sure there's nothing they can get into that could hurt them.
Okay.
So no toxic plants, no electrical cords, nothing they can chew on and swallow.
So we're thinking like detectives, securing a crime scene.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're eliminating all those possibilities for trouble.
I love it. Now, beyond safety, what about making that environment, like, mentally stimulating and enriching?
Well, here's where those interactive toys and puzzle feeders really come in handy.
Okay.
Leave a few different, engaging toys and puzzles in their space.
Yeah.
That'll keep them occupied. You might even want to try leaving the radio on or the TV, something calming, maybe some music. Some Cane Corsos find that really comforting.
It's all about creating a safe haven for them, a space where they feel good even when we're not there.
Right. It's their little sanctuary. And, even though all these strategies can be super helpful,
Yeah.
the sources also make it clear that it's okay to ask for professional help.
Oh, definitely.
If you're struggling, there's no shame in that.
Not at all.
Sometimes we need, like, a consultant
Right.
to help us crack the case.
Totally.
A certified trainer or behaviorist. They can really assess your Cane Corso's individual needs and help you come up with a good training plan.
Yeah, they're the experts, so they can help us decipher those clues.
Exactly.
Okay, wow. We have really covered a lot of ground here in part 2 of our Cane Corso deep dive. We talked about all sorts of practical solutions,
We did.
from agility training and scent work to, counter conditioning, gradual desensitization.
Right.
We learned a lot about how to meet their needs.
Absolutely. And it all comes down to becoming a detective,
Yes.
Really observing your Cane Corso, trying to figure out what they're trying to tell you.
And remembering it's a journey.
Yes.
It takes time.
It does. You need patience. You need consistency.
Definitely.
But, with the right approach, a little bit of detective work, we can help our Cane Corsos really thrive, and become the well-behaved, happy companions we know they can be.
I love that. Okay, everyone, stay tuned. We'll be right back to wrap things up and leave you with a final thought, hopefully to spark even more aha moments in your journey as a Cane Corso owner.
And we're back for the final part of our Cane Corso deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we?
We have.
From understanding, why they might be acting up to a bunch of different strategies to try.
It's been a journey.
It has. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one last thought.
Okay, I like it.
So, we tend to really focus on correcting the behavior itself.
But what if we changed our perspective a little?
Interesting. What do you have in mind?
Okay, so instead of just seeing it as, destruction or unwanted behavior, what if we saw it as a way for our Cane Corso to communicate with us?
Oh, that's powerful. I like that.
Right. So instead of getting frustrated, we should ask ourselves, what are they trying to tell me?
Exactly. Are they bored, anxious? Maybe they need more mental stimulation.
Right.
Or even, maybe they just want more connection with you.
Yeah.
Once you start to understand the message behind the behavior, then you can start to address those underlying needs.
It's like they're speaking a different language, and it's our job to become fluent.
Exactly.
So the more we learn about how they communicate, the better
Yeah.
we can understand them, right?
Yes, and that's when you really unlock that amazing partnership.
Yeah.
It becomes this amazing bond built on mutual understanding and respect.
So we're not viewing them as problems to be solved.
No.
We're embracing them as these brilliant, energetic companions.
Exactly. Who need our help?
Right. They need our guidance and support to really thrive.
And, the more we invest in understanding them, the more we get back.
Yeah, tenfold.
Tenfold.
That unwavering loyalty, the love.
That incredible Cane Corso spirit.
It's we unlock their full potential, not just as well-behaved dogs, but, as true partners.
Partners in crime.
Yes. Partners in crime, solving the mysteries of, a happy life together.
I love that.
So remember, every journey, it starts with that first step.
Mm.
Take what you've learned today, put it into practice, and I promise you, your bond with your Cane Corso it'll flourish.
I have no doubt.
This has been fantastic. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Cane Corsos. And until next time, remember, you're not just a dog owner. You're like a detective.
Mm-hmm.
You're a puzzle solver. And, most importantly, you're an advocate for your amazing Cane Corso.